Season 2. Season 2. And there's water on the table. That's a great start to Season 2.
Break
Hello.
all the equipment on week 1.
How are you?
I'm good, mate. I'm really, really
Very
good.
brown, isn't he, everyone? He's very brown.
I'm not done yet as well. I'm still going to
brown.
squeeze one more holiday in before the season starts. But don't worry, because the first game of the season I'll be there for. And it's
a big one.
It's a pretty big one. The episode today, the first episode of the season.
We've got a holiday between now and that game, by the way. Where are you going?
Bulgaria.
I'll be in Barcelona for a couple of days. So, holiday and then Oxford Pompey. You said Pompey Oxford then. That'd be the wrong way around.
It would be. There will be one of those as well during the season.
3 weeks yesterday at the time of recording.
We'll get onto that later. For the first episode, if you watched last year's one, I imagine there's going to be 6 new teams theoretically, hopefully watching this.
Absolutely. Hello and welcome.
We'll run through the concept of this pre-season show we do. We're going to look at a few sections. The first is the transfer window strong starters. A new section, the problem boys. There's been a few teams that have had a few issues over the summer. I think you know who you are. The new boys, we're going to cover all 6 new teams that are going to be joining us this year for the championship. The new gaffers, because Tom, half of the league have got new gaffers, it seems. I haven't actually counted. Did you count? It's looking like
it's a lot. It's more than
10?
we're used to. Yeah.
I think it's about 10.
It is a lot.
It's a lot of new managers. So we're going to delve into that. First, though, a word from our sponsors because, well, they're back, Wood and Grounds, for another season. Take it away. That's right. Me and Tom are thrilled to announce that this season of Just Another Month is once again brought to you by Wood and Grounds. The amazing Matt from Wood and Grounds has once again got behind the series and is providing some absolutely stunning pieces of art. I'd go as far to say they are pieces of art. Take a look at this here. This is the Kassam Stadium, a brilliant piece of art. There that is, you can put it in your office, you can put it on your desk. I've got one on my desk here. This is Wembley Stadium. You can see the detail on this is absolutely exceptional. It's got the date, the stadium, the postcode, the attendance, the game as well, the scoreline. Really, really personalised, top level stuff. And you can get your club on their website and get a discount with the code JWARD10 at checkout. Don't miss it. It's a really, really good opportunity. And like I said, I wouldn't put a sponsor on this series if I didn't think it was any good. And this is more than just good. It's absolutely brilliant. Thanks again to Matt and Wood and Grounds for getting behind the series. It's going to be a good one. Right, Tom, let's start with a transfer window strong starters. The summer is all about teams recruiting and building, hopefully, for another year of championship success. Every team's success is different. Teams recruiting to stay in the division, teams recruiting to promote themselves out of it. But we've highlighted 4 teams that we think have done some of the best business so far, and then 2 more, Birmingham and Charlton, that we're going to discuss later in the new boys section. We don't want to repeat conversation. So we've picked 4 teams that we want to delve into, and one team, one Welsh club, and there's only one Welsh club in the Championship now. Swansea City, they've started the season, or the transfer window season, strongly.
We should dovetail everything we're about to say by saying that there is loads of time left in the transfer window as well. So by no means, we're not there yet. We've got, at the time of recording, many weeks left to go until we are chatting about the window starting to close. But you're right, Snoop Dogg's Swansea.
That's not easy to say.
Off to an absolute flyer. Ethan Galbraith, Cameron Burgess, Ricardo Santos. They're 3 highlights for me, Jack, of what has been a really eye-catching summer so far in South Wales. And Galbraith in particular, there's championship level experience there. There's not championship level experience, there's championship level passing work rate. It's all there for you. Plenty of attacking energy in there as well. There's some youthful flair in the building that's just come in too. I think there's this seemingly renewed excitement around Swansea City right now, and obviously the Modric Snoop Dogg story, those being on board. Yes, it's absolutely bonkers, but I think it maybe points and signposts a little bit to the overall direction of travel that Swansea City are heading in and expected, and we're all expecting, I think externally, perhaps internally, they'll be feeling the same, that this is hopefully going to be a far from middle of the road season for them. And from them this year, Swansea fans will probably tell you that that's probably been a little bit too much of a repeat pattern, having middle of the road season. So it's all become all too familiar for them recently, and I think we are going to see something extremely out of the Swansea ordinary to come from them this time round.
Yeah, they've started really, really strongly. I think they've definitely recruited this style of player that we thought they would as well. The end of last season was good. I think it was a tricky campaign, wasn't it? It was a very, very topsy turvy one. But they wanted to go into this summer building some stability and looking prepared for the season ahead. And it looks as though so far they've done that. Along the sort of same kind of lines, Queen's Park Rangers have also started this summer really, really well too. And when we look at last year and the way that ended with Marty Cifuentes being put on gardening leave and that just general feel looking quite disorganised, I was a bit worried about QPR going into next season, or this season now. I was a little bit concerned about how they were going to prepare. Well, we're going to talk about their new manager later because, of course, they've got a new manager and you're quite excited about him. You think that he could be all right?
I'm a little bit excited about him, yeah.
But
stick around for that.
We're going to talk about their recruitment first because they've done some really, really good stuff. I'm going to make sure I don't miss anybody. I think we know that the one that always is going to stand out for me is Kwame Poku. I think that's because we both were in League One quite recently, 2 seasons ago, and we knew how amazing he can be, how threatening he can be. He is a dynamic, rapid, creative, also goal scoring, and also goal assisting type of wide player. He's the full package. At 23 years of age, £900,000 compensation, goes down as a free transfer, but under £1 million for Kwame Poku, linked to Rangers at one point, linked to felt like every Championship club, and QPR, who again, no disrespect, it's actually a compliment to QPR, but you know, the way that ended last season, you wouldn't say that was the most appealing option. Well, with a new manager, a clear direction now, I think it is a very appealing option. And when Kwame Poku joined QPR, I think we all thought, okay, right, that must mean that he's feeling something. He knows something's going on. And with some of the recruitment that's happened since then, of course, Kamroko Dembele signed permanently after that loan deal. They've signed some amazing players that have got some brilliant names. I look forward to trying to pronounce them as the season goes on.
Here we go.
Adamson, I think I can get round. There's a guy from Reading who has done some fantastic stuff for Reading over the last couple of years. Amadou Salif. How are we going with that last bit? How are we approaching that last bit? He's a very, very good central defender. Very, very strong.
Amadou, Salif and Benge. That's what I'm going with.
Is that what you're bringing to the table?
That's my... sorry, I was at a shot there, but that's my contribution. You're welcome. That's butchered. Sorry.
I'm excited by that. I think he's a versatile central defender. He can play at centre back. He can also play at full back as well. He's strong. He's physical. He fits the young profile they're looking to go. You know, we look at the average age of their players. They're about 23 years of age. They're looking to grow with those. With the team as well, which I think is positive. Really excited about QPR. I think they've done some really, really good stuff. And yeah, they're definitely a strong starter for me. Definitely a strong starter.
Another one on our list is Watford. And again, really strong start to the window. I'm going to echo what you said there. Hector Kyprianou, I think, is someone that, along similar sort of lines of Kwame Poku, and just to build on your point a little bit there, outside of the League One psyche, they're recognisable names. I think Championship fans, although they might not have seen an awful lot of someone like a Hector Kyprianou or a Kwame Poku, you know the name and you know the quality attached to it. I think there'll be a number of clubs that are in the queue for Hector Kyprianou. Nathan Baxter, Iran Kuda's a monster, evidently heavy investment at Watford this summer. We'll come back to manager chat later on because there's a new manager in North London as well. And North London, just outside of London. In at Watford, just to avoid any confusion or upset, because I know people get funny about that kind of... Absolutely, yeah. I wouldn't want to do that in the slightest. We will be coming back to the new man in charge later on in the show. I think there'll be a little bit of disappointment, maybe from Watford fans' point of view, who were quite cleverly, or big cleverly fans, that could this sort of show of faith not be shown in the predecessor to the guy coming in, or maybe they like this guy a lot more in terms of the ownership and the powers that be at the club, and are therefore more willing to part with a little bit of cash. I'm looking down the list here. I've mentioned Kyprianou, Nathan Baxter, I think a free transfer from Bolton, 2-year deal, absolutely, I know it's really overused saying, but safe pair of hands there. Othmane Mama.
What is it? The problem is, as these teams get more adventurous with their recruitment markets, the only thing they've got there is you've got two people here who are terrible at pronouncing names.
It's great that the Championship is so worldwide these days, and it's fantastic that, as you say, the markets are probably wider in terms of pool than they've ever been. we're butchering names. I'm not even going to try and pronounce the surname of the 22-year-old Danish striker brought in on loan from Udinese. That's an absolute, not happening there. James Abankwah, Irish centre-back, rejoined on a season-long loan. Again, Udinese involvement. That I mentioned him earlier on. Nestroy Irankuna is an Australian winger, signed from Bayern Munich, 5-year deal. I think, yes, he wants that form back for his Socceroo starting place, and I think he'll be really eager to demonstrate that. But he's an absolute monster. I really like the look of him, and I'm actually really excited to see him play. It isn't time for manager chat. We are going to come back. New gaffer, Paolo Pezzolano. Best name of any gaffer in the Championship, I think, right now. He is on a 1-year contract with the option to extend. How very Watford is that?
Reduce the compensation early.
Absolutely. They've got new signings covering all areas that I've just outlined. They've got a nice blend of youth and experience, which I always look for. Their development focus is clear for all to see. You've got young prospects in there that I've mentioned. You've got physicality, pace, goal threat in terms of forward options. It's pretty much a full house from my point of view on Watford, Jack, and I'm extremely exciting. It's just started raining outside. It's Sunday the 20th of July, folks, and it's the great British summertime.
It's the summer transfer window.
It is.
Wouldn't suggest that through the weather at the moment.
No, absolutely not.
Norwich City next, Tom, and I think this is, and if you're an Oxford United fan, if you followed the stuff that I've done for a while, and we'll come to Liam Manning later, you'll know that
Liam Manning,
we've had our ups and downs, our relationship.
We have. Keeps following us around as Liam Manning, doesn't he?
Go abroad or something, go and do something else. No, he's going to stay in the Championship. He's going to take someone else on. We'll come back to the appointment later because I think all jokes aside, I think it's a very sensible, strong appointment and he's being heavily backed. I really, really like what they've done. The standout signing, the striker who they signed from Brøndby from Denmark, Vestergaard. The guy is, and I've gone with the accent there, Mathias Vestergaard. I'm going to go with. He is an absolute monster. His goal-scoring numbers in Denmark are a joke. I think, is going to be the Sargent replacement. It does look like Sargent's going to be off to Wolfsburg for £21 million. That hasn't been confirmed yet, but we knew they needed to bring in another striker or replace a striker. I really like it. Lots of conversation, Norwich fans, about a release clause, and apparently there's a secret release clause that no one knew about. Norwich found out about it, and they've gone have a bit of that. And if you look at, I think he's going to be worth more than £8 million, or €8, sorry, very, very soon. I've got a good feeling. I'm putting early stocks on him. Jacob Wright signed on a permanent deal from Manchester City. Of course, he was on loan last season and looks really, really good. New goalkeeper has arrived as well, which needed to happen because Angus Gunn last year had his ups and downs. I think they went for about 3 different goalkeepers last year. So to have a number one in early doors, I think is really, really important. Medic has joined from Ajax as well. Harry Darling, I mean, he is a big... Liam Manning does like Harry Darling. Of course, spent a long time there with...
That's a great signing, by the way.
Really good signing.
That's a great
free
signing.
Transfer too. Of course, he spent a lot of time with Liam Manning at MK Dons. Remember that time in League One where they were united there. I can't believe he's still 25. That must mean he's
been 25 for about 5 years, I feel like. Yeah, he's just not aging, Harry Darling.
I thought he was 25 at MK Dons.
Yeah.
And he's been at now Swansea for a long time. He's now at Norwich and on a free transfer. I think that is absolutely fantastic. And then they've reinforced their goalkeeper department too with Louis Molden and Daniel Grimshaw who's joined from Plymouth. So really, really like what they've done. I think there's still more to come. I think they still need to look at those wide areas. That's what the Norwich fans are saying right now. Can they continue? Because of course Borja has left the club. But I think the sign of a good window is you lose players like Sargent and Sainz who were very, very good last season, or I think Sainz tailed off slightly, but their numbers together were made up a large number of goals.
Sainz was prime Ronaldo for about 2.5 months, wasn't he?
And then it all sort of... But then he scored so many during that period that the numbers still made up a bulk of Norwich's goals and assists. The fact that we're still talking about Norwich being exciting and looking strong when you've lost those 2 players, I think says an awful lot about the recruitment they've done so far. So really excited about Norwich. Definite strong starters. They're backing Liam Manning. A quick chat on Liam Manning later, I'm sure, in manager chat.
It'll come. Don't you worry. Of course it will come. Our next club are... we should say this is now Problem Boys. We're into Problem Boys. I believe we've done 4 clubs, haven't we?
Yeah.
We're into Problem Boys. And if there was a Problem Boy, or the Problem Boy of the Championship, unfortunately, for Wednesdayites out there, it is, of course, Sheffield Wednesday right now. And the 2 words that spring to mind are oh and dear. We had our briefing call during the week, myself and Jack. We also had a nice breakfast this morning and we discussed it. I remember saying this to you. I cannot believe we're in the calendar year of 2025 and there is a side in English football's second tier, widely regarded as one of the best second tiers on the planet, that is being run in this way. We obviously had the news of Michael Smith and Josh Windass departing the club this week. Will Roll stay? Will he go? Seems like he's gone back to take a week of training, and all of a sudden
he was bored. He came back holiday. I thought I'll pop in, see how they're getting on.
You know when comedians go back on stage for the encore, and then they go. So you think, oh, everyone claps them off, they're gone, and then they come back for one more joke, and then they go.
Part of me was thinking with Danny Roll doing that. I don't think that this is obviously. I'm half joking, half not, but it's almost like he's gone there and gone. I'm going to prove how much more of a mess this is. Emphasise the mess. I'm going to go back for a week.
Underline the mess.
Underline the mess a little bit more. Make it look even worse than it already is, which I think is quite difficult.
Yeah.
Because I think there's been lots of... I'll let you carry on, but there's been meetings about Danny Roll. The players not happy that he's come back, which I think is fully justified. If your boss was like, no, not interested, not going to turn back, and then suddenly he turns around and goes, actually, I might just come back for a week. You'd be like, no, you've ditched us. Go away.
I think you've kind of outlined it quite nicely there, but it is just a complete colossal mess, and it's not funny whatsoever. And I know we're having a bit of a...
If you don't laugh, you'll cry, Sheffield Wednesday fans.
I think we're being...
And it is extremely serious, because if that happened to any of our clubs,
it's happened to
Pompey,
it's happened
you know how difficult it is.
It's happened to Pompey, but I don't think, and maybe it was because of the time that it was, but I don't think ours didn't perhaps play out in the national picture quite as big as this one has. And perhaps it's because Sheffield... can you call them Sheffield United then? That's just to rub salt in the wound. Maybe Sheffield Wednesday, obviously a colossal footballing dynasty in this country, which is why I think it's even worse that it's happened to them. They are completely part of the fabric of football in this country, and football began in Sheffield, yet they're in an absolute state. And unfortunately, Jack, there is literally one man to blame for it, and it obviously looks like he's got himself in complete personal financial disarray. And I come back to my point that I made earlier on, that you've got case studies like your Pompey, Bolton, Bury, whatever it is over the years, that things were put in place from a governmental point of view in terms of the running of football in this country to try and make sure things like this don't happen and continue for clubs in future. Yet we arrive here in this situation. I said it to you earlier on, you've got a 5-star disaster. You've got your deep financial trouble and issues. You've got a completely stalled takeover over the last couple of weeks. You've got a fragile managerial setup. You've said it just then, the manager isn't actually wanted there by the players. You've got mass player exits, and there's stadium concern over the viability and the safety of the North Stand at Hillsborough. So that's a complete full house, and it's the worst full house pretty much imaginable. And it's leaving everyone, and predictions will come out on this channel, they'll come out on my channel, they'll come out in various different places that you watch Championship content on over the next couple of weeks. But everyone's going to be putting Sheffield Wednesday right at the bottom of the league in terms of where they're going to finish this season.
And it's not surprising. No. And that's the thing. And I do...
But Sheffield Wednesday, Jack...
I know, and these problems, they've been going on for much longer than this season. If you look at when they got promoted out of League One...
Of course, this is nothing new.
Darren Moore was obviously promoted with Sheffield Wednesday when we were there, wasn't it? The playoff final against Barnsley. And then he was sacked. They replaced him early on in the season, and that went... Well, actually, at the start of the season, he didn't manage a Championship game for Sheffield Wednesday. And then Danny Roll came in, then it sort of settled over last summer. We had a conversation about Sheffield Wednesday, and they were recruiting a good bulk of players. But the season unfolded and it deteriorated, and this summer has been dreadful. The next problem, boy, Tom, Hull City. There's another one on the naughty step, isn't there? They've not acted the way the fans would hope they would do, and they should do, really. This is a professional football club. These are two professional football clubs that have played at an extremely, extremely good level that are failing to act in the ways that they should do. As of today, I've bullet pointed the situation at Hull City because it's a bit more complicated.
Blimey, there's quite a few bullet points on there.
It's a bit more complicated than the Sheffield Wednesday one, because the Sheffield Wednesday one is as doom and gloom as it sounds. The facts are pretty straight. It's bad, bad, bad. Hull City, I think it is that, but it's a bit deeper. So Hull City, as of right now, cannot spend any money on transfer fees. That includes fees or loans that have fees within them. They're under a 3-window transfer restriction. So that's this summer, January, and next summer. They've appealed this, but haven't yet heard a response. So they're still under this transfer embargo. As it stands, they can only make free transfers or loan deals that do not require any money being paid to the parent club. This sort of began with the Louis Barry loan deal. Do you remember that one last season? They signed him on loan from Aston Villa. Apparently there was a £1 million loan fee there. Villa didn't get their money. However, since then it's been reported that that has now been settled. But obviously, they still breach the contract of that agreement. You have to pay. Sounds stupid, isn't it? We're having to. You have to pay your money on time. That is sort of the rule. It was then reported that at the end of May, Hull City had future commitments of almost £22 million for players signed under the current ownership. So they've still got £22 million worth of players with future financial commitments. They haven't yet paid. Pretty serious. There's a debt of £3 million still owed to a previous ownership group. Several clubs have had requests sent by Hull City to delay transfer payments. Does that sound like someone over at Sheffield Wednesday? That sounds pretty familiar. While we don't delay payments, you can delay them, and then very quickly, as Sheffield Wednesday fans will see, delaying goes to not paying them. And that's a very, very familiar but dangerous place to be. Numerous suppliers have also not been paid as well. The ownership is adamant. They're in a comfortable place, though. And in a statement...
Are they?
And in a statement,
Sounds it.
And in a statement, they said they had a cash flow issue when they didn't receive £1.5 million that was intended to pay for money for suppliers. So he's now saying, actually, no, we're still waiting for money for other people. Convenient, isn't it? He's also adamant that the squad has a £100 million potential.
I think you have £100 million potential. I could say that and it would just be out there. I don't need to provide any basis for it.
I think that when you own something, you can say that it's potentially worth whatever you want.
You can.
I don't think it's... I think that's maybe a slightly... that might be a slightly bloated estimation. But the point is, the facts there are not good, and that the ownership are always going to come out and say they're comfortable. They don't want to worry people. But unfortunately, in a world now where everything is reported, everything is documented, the facts are going to get leaked. The facts are going to get put out there. And looking at the facts, there's money there that they are not paying. They are not paying people and clubs on time. And whether he said he's comfortable or not, he's admitted there is a cash flow issue, and we know as soon as there's a cash flow issue that we saw at Sheffield Wednesday too, it doesn't ever end well.
This time last year, Hull City basically flaunted the fact that they could pay £4.5 million for Abu Kamara from Norwich, and we were all kind of sat there going, well, we can't compete with spending power like that. It's not always greener, is it, when you sort of, they throw all that at it. And I know Abu Kamara was one example that I was close to at the time that I was gutted about, but you just, and this is nothing against Hull City fans or anything like that, because, as a fan of a club that's been there in terms of dire financial strait and real concern about, even existence of the club, which I don't think is quite being pulled into question here, but yeah, I think the fact that they blew that money on Abu, and I know that's one example, but the other transfer fees,
they've been spending millions and £1 for a long time and have not been able. They've been in similar positions,
thinking they can just say to clubs, "Oh, we'll pay you in a series of instalments." I know clubs do that, but perhaps not to the extent of this. And it's I don't know what happens now. I don't know whether we consider Hull City in the bracket of Sheffield Wednesday almost doomed to be going down. Let's not forget, obviously, the issues and the problems weren't perhaps as outlined clearly as they have been over this summer, but they only just stayed up on the final day last season. So I don't know.
And still sat their manager.
What the... Oh, God, don't even get
They've got a new manager as well. Sorry, we didn't mention.
Let's not get started about that. And we'll probably come to him later on. But yeah, it's all a bit messy. It's new boys time, and we're kicking off with Leicester City. We'll come back to Marty Cifuentes' appointment in manager chat. You know him best. I'll probably leave the floor to you for that one. What I would say is there is a lot going on at Leicester City right now, and the timing and the optics of the managerial change, only kind of looking a little bit more into it, do you perhaps realise that it was to try and work around a PSR problem that they had in terms of the sacking of Van Nistelrooy and actually kicking in that to July's accounts, basically, and it's all got a little bit complicated and silly. And again, it's another case of like, this is the Championship and it's being run like an absolute kangaroo court. But there we are. There's a pending 9 points deduction. Well, the expectation really is that could be anywhere between 9 and 12. And I think if that points deduction is to happen, word on the street is that it probably will, surely. And this is only me saying this, you might disagree, that takes them away from challenging for a possible return to top flight football this season, given how high the stakes are at the top end of this division. I think time will tell with Leicester, and I think if it weren't for, take Ipswich aside for a moment, and we're going to talk about Southampton in a minute, but they have obviously covered them quite nicely, I think, in terms of last season. Leicester had an absolutely woeful Premier League campaign, and if Southampton weren't as bad, I think people would have perhaps paid a lot more attention to just how terrible Leicester were. And in terms of having only recently in living memory won the Premier League, let's not forget, and that was an absolutely turgid campaign for them. Nonetheless, by Championship standards, that squad remains incredibly strong. You're going to tell us a bit about Marty later on. He clearly knows what he's doing, and the demand will be to implement his skill set on that group very, very quickly. How versed is he going to be in terms of if he needs to overcome this points deduction? He'll have never experienced anything like that in his managerial career, I'm sure, before. Let's see what happens.
I think also, before we talk about Marty in a little bit more detail later, Leicester, obviously, the bottom line of it is Leicester are financially not very strong at the moment. And when you speak about the expectations of where they were a couple of years ago, not a couple of years ago, the Premier League title win was nearly 10 years ago now, wasn't it? How quickly that's gone.
But in football terms, that's not very long ago.
No, and to be, already had a season in the Championship since then, and now they're back again now, there has, been a quite significant downfall, and that has come from they've financially made some mistakes, or they've had issues. It looks as though the current ownership haven't got loads of money. And if they did have loads of money as well, because of the mistakes they've made before, with very high wages and things like that, they also now are going to get punished for overspending and spending too much money. So they're in a bit of a vicious cycle, and they need to reduce the dangers of that vicious cycle. And maybe a year in the Championship where they need to settle is a good way of doing it. We'll come back to Marty in a minute, because I think one thing I will say about Marty is he's quite used to dealing with situations like that. QPR didn't have loads and loads of money themselves. Southampton, Tom, you need a bucket. You're going to be sick or anything? You're going to be okay.
No, I didn't.
Should we talk about Southampton?
You can. I don't really want to. Go on.
I think the squad, though, is in great shape, to be honest. I really do. I said I wasn't going to go into too much detail on Will Still. We can find that information out there. Played Football Manager, I believe, in his time. That squad is definitely ready for front-footed football. They've got players that can play that progressive style. Sulemina, Kyle Walker-Peters, a real interest have left the club. But beyond that, Tyler Dibbling, Taylor Harwood-Bellis, Aaron Ramsdale, Mateus Fernandez, Flynn Downs, they all remain at the club, and that's a really, really strong core there. A really strong core. Shay Charles and Ronnie Edwards have just returned from Championship loans, and they were exceptional. Shay Charles was the shining light in a very topsy-turvy Sheffield Wednesday season. Ronnie Edwards did fantastically well at QPR.
Good squad, isn't it?
It's pretty good. And look, they definitely need to implement an identity. And in the Premier League, well, Russell Martin did have an identity, but it certainly was not suited, and they didn't have the players to do that in the Premier League, and adaptation was an issue there. Will Still, I think it's very clear that Southampton do want to go back to playing a really, really good style of play, and Will Still has proved he can do that. And at Championship level, and that's what they're going into, a Championship season, they've got some fantastic individuals there, and a manager that has got a very, very clear approach to games and approach to winning games of football in style. So it's they're strong. They are very, very strong. And as new boys go, getting relegated from the Premier League, they've got a nice squad there. They could still lose a few of those players, but if they just keep even 3 out of the 6 I've mentioned, or 4 out of the 6 I've mentioned, that's still pretty good going.
The last of the 3 teams relegated from English football's top flight last season into our wonderful second tier is Ipswich. And I think if anyone wants to go back on the channel, go and watch the Ipswich video that you did for more clarity and detail on what we're about to talk about. But if anyone does finish above Ipswich Town this season, then the likelihood is they'll probably be playing Premier League football the season after. I'm considering them to still be a very strong outfit heading into the campaign. There's a lot of top, well-performing talent still from their Premier League last season that's still on the books, much like the Southampton chat you were just talking about. Got to mention big outgoing, the likes of Liam Delap. There's also Brentford interested, Omari Hutchinson, I believe, which would be a big blow. And I know actually, and this is a little bit of a nuanced point, but from first-hand experience, George Hurst is a top striker, and an extension to his contract, I think, is a really positive move from an Ipswich point of view. They'll want to be challenging again, won't they?
They will, and they've got a really good core. Then, like I said, you go and watch the video. We did dissect this in a bit more detail, but one point I'd make about Ipswich is they've definitely learnt the lessons of the Premier League, or if they haven't, they should have done, because they've had to evolve in the Premier League, because we know how brutal that league is. I think they're gonna be stronger because of that experience. I would say that they have got Championship players there that have done exceptionally good things at this level before. You look at like Connor Chaplin has done a fantastic job in the Smolix. Sammy Smolix has done an amazing job.
They did basically build a Championship super team to take them up, and now most of the elements of that Championship super team are still
with exposure of Premier League football.
The other thing as well is they've probably got the best gaffer in the division, I would say. Is there anyone that's better than Kieran McKenna at this level this season?
Look what he's done.
Other than John Messino, obviously.
Gary Rowett's great.
Gary Rowett's also great, yeah.
But no, you make a good point. I think Ipswich, like I said, we're going to detail on that. There's a video on the channel where we dissect it, but the truth of the matter is they've got a really well-built squad there with Premier League exposure and already some fantastic numbers at this level. Let's congratulate the teams that are joining us from League One, Tom. Should we do a round of applause? No, let's not. We did, obviously, we made up 2 of the new boys last year.
We did. Yes. We're out of that segment now.
Yeah, thankfully we are still here.
We're gone.
Thankfully we're not gone, Tom. We are still here.
So, well, we're gone from the new boy section. There were points I thought we might be gone. There were elements of last season where we were both gone at certain periods of time, and then we both stayed. So that was good.
And I imagine there will be times where, probably more so, and take this the right way, Wrexham and Charlton feel like that. I'm not entirely sure that Birmingham will feel like that too much. They've got a pretty strong squad. Yeah, Wrexham and Charlton. I'm going to do a quick chat on Wrexham. We've had a conversation off camera about Wrexham. Careful.
We're slightly split, aren't we? I think. Oh,
yeah, I think we are slightly split.
You're definitely split from me.
I think Wrexham. I think that squad right now, looking at it, and I'll be honest with you, there's a long way still to go. There's still plenty of time for them to recruit. And the thing with Wrexham is, as we did mention in that conversation, we acknowledged Wrexham with their financial strength at any point can go, here you go. You want some money? Yep. We'll go and buy these type of players.
Flexing of muscles hasn't quite happened yet at the racecourse.
And the core of this squad at the moment, I'll be totally honest, isn't moving me. It's
a bit old, isn't it?
It's a little bit. I just don't know if it's got that wow factor. And you don't necessarily need wow factor all over the pitch if you're looking to stay in the league. And I hope Wrexham fans are thinking that they should be looking to stay in the league, because the issue that they've got, and I think that they're sensible enough to manage expectations. The Championship is a different beast. And we're not just saying that, it is. Ask anybody that gets promoted from League One into the Championship. And that their rise has been phenomenal. Not taking anything away from that. I'm just saying, I look at that squad right now, and it definitely does need strengthening. I think the centre-half they've just signed from Italy is a really, really strong addition. And that's definitely the type of player they should be recruiting. Somebody who's not in their mid-30s. Somebody who can grow, develop with the football club. And then you can sort of get a bit of stability long term. Not that they need financial sustainability, but eventually you might do. Look at the clubs we just spoke about, financial issues. I'm not saying they're going to get themselves into that type of mess, but you've also got to be. A lot of the successful teams now are able to develop players, sell them on, reinvest, and there's got to be a bit of long-termism there. And of course, when you've got financial muscle that Wrexham have got, that's not a priority. But long-term, I think it definitely could be. With the expectations of hopefully, or the ambition, should I say, of eventually becoming a Premier League club, I think that is necessary. I don't think you can sign players in the 30s and get to the Premier League. I really don't. I think there has got to be a bit of give and take there, and that might still happen. I think Ryan Hardy is a strong signing. I think he's a goal scorer. He's done fantastic things at Plymouth. Josh Windass is rumoured to join the football club, and that's very, very Wrexham. In fact, I literally said in the one transfer video, if you haven't watched that, go and do it. I put Windass forward for Wrexham, and that was more of a prediction, really, because it does definitely stink of Wrexham, that signing. And look, he's a good signing. He definitely is a really good player. But right now, Wrexham, I think there's still work to do. They've got time, though. They've got time.
Perhaps opposite end of the scale on this one, Birmingham City, you did a full video on Blues just a few short weeks ago. I'm sure many of you have seen it. If you haven't, go and watch it. This will, I think, absolutely be the most excited Birmingham City fans have been ahead of a season in a very, very long time. And I don't think there's any doubt about that. Kyogo Furuhashi is so exciting. 85 goals in 3.5 seasons. And people will say Scottish football. People will say wherever he was playing before. I think a close friend of mine will always say in answer to this that if you're a goal scorer, Jack, you're a goal scorer, and it doesn't really matter at the level, at the club, whatever it is, as long as you are of a certain ilk, then your goal scoring ability is a transferable skill that can kind of take you anywhere. Centre-back from Bundesliga 2, Phil Newman, might go under the radar a little bit. He looks class. They are making a proper go of it. And you said it in your video. Yes, they've spent tens and tens of millions of pounds. It's ludicrous monetary firepower. But if you want a blueprint, with no pun intended, a blueprint of how to boldly rebuild a football club, revitalise it from top to bottom, there's so much about this that so many people are already expecting a very competitive championship season right at the first time of asking. This is how it's done. But also, there is so much logic to the ludicrous fees. And if you're not a Blues fan, there's chances are you're out there watching this thinking, you turn your nose up at it and you think, wow, they're just spending for spending's sake. And look at how much cash they've got behind them. And of course, they're going to do well. But if you're in it, and many of you watching this will be in it, you'll know that Tom Wagner, Knighthead, Chris Davis, they know exactly what they're doing. And by the way, on Chris Davis, yes, the tools at his disposal are almost superseded League One level. Yes, they have. They won it by an absolute country mile last season. Don't underestimate just how difficult it is to still get a tune out of players. No matter how much their price tag is worth, you still need to make that work yourself. It's something to be incredibly excited about, I think, if you're a Birmingham City fan. And as I said, there's a lot of people already tipping them for, challenging for the playoffs, even maybe an automatic promotion spot come this time in, 9-10 months' time.
Charlton are the final team that join us from League One. Of course, they beat Leyton Orient at the playoff final. We were both there. We enjoyed...
We were just about there, by the way. Do we want to ever tell that story? Or
we could tell that story on the podcast we're going to do later, because we're doing a podcast after this, my brand new podcast, The Champ, this week, and Tom's joining us for the first ever episode. I thought I'd get him on for the first ever one.
Very exciting.
So that's a bit more of a slightly more chattier version, and we could discuss that story because that was the end of last season. That was a little bit scary, but we did get in and we saw Charlton lift the trophy and win promotion to the Championship. And so far, I've been really impressed with Charlton in the transfer window. They have reminded me a little bit of what Oxford United did.
Here we go.
Last summer.
Go on then.
Which was strengthen in every position because they need to. And that's how I feel about it. I think Charlton, obviously had a good squad anyway, but we know the gulf and the big levels of quality difference between League One and the Championship, and having to recruit. And it sounds like you're almost saying that every position isn't good enough. That's not the case. You don't just need quality; you need strength and depth. And when you're playing in the Championship and there's a lot of different oppositions, being adaptable, being able to rotate and adjust and experiment almost, I think is important. And we know Nathan Jones has got a very distinct style of play. And they've been really strong in the market. 3 Luton players have joined. So
there's a surprise.
You can tell who is in charge of the recruitment strategy there. Although there is a joke intended there, obviously, but I also think they are 3 players that do improve this squad. I think Amari Bell is a good, experienced central defender. I think the one that is really standoutish is Thomas Kaminski, of course, who is a goalkeeper at 32 years of age. He didn't have the best season, and to be honest, not did any Luton player last season, but in the Premier League, he was absolutely phenomenal.
It's a really good pool of players to actually be taken from, because they're not a bad group of players. But as a collective, they had such a shocking season and they've lowered their stocks immensely. But I suppose also with the added element of Nathan Jones being able to work with them as well, that's really shrewd bit of business. All of those Luton additions, I really quite like that. And that's not where it ends, is it?
No, Sonny Carey joined from Blackpool, a bit of a box crashing number 10. Imagine to sort of share the workload with Luke Berry.
We love a box crashing number 10 on this channel.
That's how I describe myself often. Joe Rankin Costello joins as a right wing back. I also did see he's played at right wing back for Blackburn, but he also can play midfield as well. So potentially that's something that Charlton could experiment with. Technically, clearly good enough. Rob Apter is my favourite signing from Blackpool. He
sorry.
Yeah, careful, Tom. If it's too good, it's going to get copyrighted.
That was not planned, and that was off the term.
Although I didn't put that two and two together. I was worried why you just breaking into song there.
That's got to be a chant, hasn't it? That's got.
Charlton do love a unique chant, so maybe that might be something they take on. I doubt it.
Is Ryan Faulkner watching this with his head in his hands right now?
Yes, he's probably switched it off and
probably
gone.
I
was excited about the Championship, and you've just absolutely blown my bubble.
Ruined it.
Yes, I've been really. You throw me off there. Charlton have strengthened really well. I don't think it's done yet. I think they are definitely still a few attackers short. They are probably another midfielder short as well. But generally, their squad has been strengthened in all areas, and we know it requires strength in depth. It requires players that can step in and adjust to what the Championship is all about. And they've recruited a lot of players there that have played the Championship and higher before, which I think is a really, really sensible method. So. Really impressed by them. So the new gaffers, strap in. We've got a few to get through, 10 in total. Seems like every club fancied a bit of change, and they've definitely done that. We've discussed a few of them, so we don't need to talk about Will Still anymore or any further. Of course, he has joined Southampton. Marty Cifuentes, we said we'd mention, and we will a bit more. I think he's got his work cut out. I do. But his time at QPR ended poorly. But if you look at what he did at QPR, I think he certainly improved them. Since, it was the biggest stylistic change you ever saw. He replaced Gareth Ainsworth, and there's a few differences in the way that they try and coach football.
Don't ever forget that QPR were absolutely rock bottom at one point and ended up being a pretty comfortable middle-of-the-road mid-table Championship side in the end. There was even a point where it looked like they might even challenge for a playoff spot at one very brief stage, but it still was a stage nonetheless.
I think he's going to have to sell to buy. Is that something he's not used to? No, I think that was probably the same at QPR, really. There wasn't a lot of money there for him to bring every player he wanted to, and that's probably why he was quite keen to take it on.
But he's not stupid, so he wouldn't have taken the job if he knew, or maybe he did, and maybe he just saw the opportunity, and maybe he was out in the cold at QPR in the way in which he was and sort of really wanted to jump at the next chance. But he's not an idiot, and I think he would have done his due diligence and hopefully does a good job.
Julian Stefan, someone you're getting a bit excited about, Julian Stefan.
This is very exciting.
Have you got anything you'd like to share on him?
I just think that his French track record is very, very impressive, and I think it's similar but not directly comparable to a certain Reggie Lebris when he arrived on the Championship scene not too long ago. I like what I see, and I'm thinking he's probably, of the managers that we know least about in terms of proven track record in this country's footballing fabric, he's probably the one that you can perhaps have the most confidence that he will actually bring something materially positive to the table. So yeah, I think he's one to keep an eye on, but he sort of, in terms of that development of young talent, and I think also the project that he's heading into as well, and you outlined some of the signings earlier on in this episode at QPR, that's don't sleep on QPR this season. That one could be quite something.
Liam Manning next. We've got a love-hate relationship with Liam Manning. I've always said this, as a manager, as a coach, he is exceptional. He is a top level coach. What he did for Oxford United when he came in, he saved us. He then rebuilt, changed the way that we approach things, and we were in the top two positions when he departed for Bristol City.
Can anyone see his gritted teeth? Because I certainly can.
I've always said this. If I put a sensible head on for a minute and wasn't as frustrated at the fact that I think he did just sort of ditch us for something that he thought was better, and was better, obviously, but he's now since then left them as well. Liam Manning, I don't think if we didn't appoint Liam Manning, I don't know if we would be in the Championship, because if we look back on last season when he left and Des Buckingham came in, it feels like a long time ago, it was only 2 seasons ago. he left us in a very good position. His recruitment during that summer was a bulk of some of the players that are still here now and players that played a huge part in our success. But he did leave us. He left us at Bristol City. He then achieved Bristol City's best ever season in the Championship in recent years, for sure. Of course, that playoff semi-final against Sheffield United didn't quite go didn't quite go the way they would have wanted it to go. That first leg was absolute killer, but they definitely did look a much better side. They'd sort of moved away from those usual 12th place finishes we've seen in the Championship for a very long time, and it looked like they're moving in the right direction. And then just when they thought they're moving in the right direction under Liam Manning, he thought, off I pop to Norwich City, who missed out on the top six last season. Of course, sacked Hofthorpe after 1 year. And like I mentioned with Norwich's transfers, won't repeat in that same conversation. They've backed Liam Manning. And do I think it's a really good appointment? Yes, I do. I think it makes total sense. I think he has got a very, very strong identity. He plays good stuff, and that's important. Norwich want to be a progressive side, and they've signed players so far that I think absolutely fit his identity. Players that he's managed before, Harry Darling, we've spoken about. So I think I'm excited about Norwich. The only thing with Liam Manning is, and I know this is such a lazy thing to say, but I think it's actually important we do say it, is if they finish 7th, is he just going to go again next summer? I don't know.
Probably. Just to wind back the clock ever so slightly, Sergei Yakirovic in Hull, the club he left for Hull, he managed to steer them away from relegation without making a single signing. The only thing I'll say on this is, would it be remiss of me to say that he might need to deploy that as a transferable skill on Humberside? I think he probably will. We're not going to mention Will Still too much. I think, look, a lot of his success in French football, his fantastic success, is attributable basically to the sensational unbeaten run, which is absolutely governed our Twitter feeds for weeks on end at the time. In the Championship, if Southampton are going to go back up, that needs to be a winning run and not an unbeaten run. And I think they're probably fully aware of that. I just maintain that little bit of caution with no bias whatsoever. Is he a promising, up-and-coming, young, talented coach? Yes, he absolutely is. Is he an accomplished, proven, top-end manager? No, he isn't. Not quite yet. Yeah, my mate Paolo, the only thing I'd really say, obviously he's got the best name out of any Championship manager right now. We all know that as a well-trodden fact by now. His predecessor, Tom Cleverley, he was sacked off the back of not delivering a playoff finish. Is Pezzolano capable of going one better? Certainly being provided with some of the tools in which to do so. Time will tell us. I'm not wholly convinced right at this moment in time, but I'm wishing Paolo all the very best.
So am I. Let's talk about the top 4 most interesting, potentially. And that's very subjective, but I think it's a few
this is, Jack? All of this is.
It's all subjective, sure. We're going to start with our new Bristol City manager, Struber, who has joined us from Germany. Red Bull, who are, of course, known for their energetic football. And I think that, if anything, that previous position emphasises that point hugely.
He has managed in the States before as well, we should say.
To be fair, he's got quite a good little CV. I mentioned Red Bull, actually, specifically, because he's relentless. He is pretty relentless. He wants high-energy football.
Bristol City fans... vodka Red Bull, isn't he?
He's on it. He's absolutely on it. And Bristol City fans have had the chance to speak to him in their pre-season camp, and apparently the word that they keep using is intense, passionate, and heart on his sleeve, which I think is,
Doesn't surprise me.
He is a very, very emotional. I think that is, is obviously a good thing.
Jack's written on his notes, the bloke is passionate.
Well, if you want an insight into how I write my videos, that's
what you get.
And I think that is ironically transferred into his style of play. The word that comes up time and time again is intensity. Yeah. His side plays with a brutal amount of intensity in the way that they operate. I think for Bristol City, a little bit different to Liam Manning. Liam Manning was slightly more possession-based, slightly more patient, waiting for openings, a bit more slower in that build-up. Whereas I think with Struber, we're going to see a bit more off the cuff, high intense. How many times can I use the word intense? But it's the only word that's coming to my mind with this guy. He's full throttle, absolutely full throttle. I think Bristol City, a breath of fresh air. And from what we've heard from Bristol City fans so far when speaking to him, they're liking him.
Rob Edwards in at Middlesbrough. We talk about stocks of managers all the time, don't we, between us? And I know there's absolutely no world in which this happens. But if you imagine that last season didn't unfold in the way it did, let's say, and it is also important to say that although Rob Edwards' fingerprints are all over Luton's back-to-back relegations, it was only actually really the Premier League one that he was there to entirely oversee. Of course, Matt Bloomfield did try and do a little bit of a last-ditch emergency repair job which ultimately failed. If you do imagine that last season didn't unfold in the way it did, Middlesbrough landing Rob Edwards as their new gaffer following Michael Carrick would have been far more lauded, I think, with the fanfare that we would associate with Rob Edwards prior to last season. And all on the pivot of a horrible 9-month period, of course, as a manager for him. He's taken stock, he's stepped back from it, he's had a chance to reevaluate. That is the way the managerial cookie crumbles. We know that all of a sudden he is not a bad coach because of that. And the Borough hierarchy don't think so either. And I think we'll all look forward to seeing how he gets on. There's clearly a bit of an immediacy with this one as well, and he'll be feeling the pressure straight away. How he manages to cope with it is to be seen. Is Ryan Mason the most inexperienced yet experienced option that could have possibly come in at West Brom?
Yes, probably. I think he's been assistant manager for a very, very long time. He's had a real variety of managers. In fact, to make sure I don't forget any, of course, most recently, Ange Postecoglou, Jose Mourinho, I believe, was during that period as well. They've had a few, haven't they? I don't think he was there. I think he might have come in after the Pochettino era. Of course,
no, I think he has worked under Poch.
Was he under Poch?
Yeah,
I mean, he would have played probably under
Played
Poch
under
as
Poch,
well.
yeah. Not necessarily assistant managed, but certainly played.
Antonio Conte, too.
Yeah.
I remember that period.
There are some names, aren't there?
So, he's had a real variety.
He's going to have picked up at least something.
You'd like to think so, wouldn't you?
Maybe he's the next Mikel Arteta.
Maybe. I don't know. That's probably one of the only managers that he hasn't worked under. Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting. Like you say, he's someone that culturally, by being around these type of people, you'd like to think have picked up this a variety of styles. And like you said, you can sort of add the attacking side of Ange Postecoglou with the slightly more pragmatic defensive side of Nuno, of Jose Mourinho, of Conte. I know those didn't all work out really in the end, but whatever happens, all of those managers, to be fair, did have better periods than others, and they all had decent moments within them, some longer than others. And from what Tottenham fans are saying, and it's quite difficult to know exactly what that looks like, and what West Brom fans are expecting, and what Ryan Mason has maybe said, I think he is someone that wants to come in and play a pretty exciting brand of football. He wants to be progressive, front-footed, the usual stuff for an upcoming coach, or an upcoming manager, not so much coach. He's been a coach for a long period of time. I think we're going to see a very, very clear identity. And I think with West Brom last season, we sort of lost that. Carlos Corberán definitely had it, but Tony Mowbray maybe not so much. I want to go back to being that progressive side that you know what to expect. And they tried the experience route with Tony Mowbray. That didn't quite work. They now want to sort of grow a manager again and develop him as much as the squad. And I think Ryan Mason's got I think he's got a fantastic opportunity to do that, and an exciting CV as well.
Do you know, I really like the variety of managers that we've actually got in the Championship this season. I think it's actually quite exciting to see how these various different philosophies and identities in terms of each individual manager is going to actually play out. It's going to be really interesting to see. I'm also interested to see how our final manager that we're going to talk about, Ruben Selles, with the shackles off as a manager, how that's actually going to go down. And what I mean by that is pretty much every situation he's been in so far. You think Southampton and Hull as the two big ones. Of course, Reading with limited resources and a situation he was in. It has been backs against the wall, fighting fires at pretty much every single turn for Selles, and adversity every waking moment. Not an awful lot of wiggle room in terms of what he's been trying to achieve, but he's also managed to do, by and large, the job that he needed to do, where he's been, and in some cases exceeded that in terms of expectation. There's a proactivity to Ruben Selles, which I think is a nice fit for Sheffield United in terms of implementing that style. At Bramall Lane, he'll have the tools that he won't have previously felt like he could have or had access to. He inherits, yes, a squad hurting from way back in May at Wembley still, but an incredibly hungry group of players. He can instill some of the fire in the belly to do right by the departing Chris Wilder as a club legend, get it back to that intention of perhaps going one better this season. I'll dovetail that by saying that massive expectation, and Selles has been more about doing the impossible, perhaps in terms of stabilising under-resourced teams as opposed to actually delivering what's expected of him, which is why I think is a bit of a risk, but it's a risk that's worth taking. You'll be interested to see how he gets on at Sheffield.
I think it's a good appointment. I think there was controversy because Chris Wilder was such a fan favourite there, like you say. But I think as managers go, he's proven to be a really, really good one. What a jam-packed episode! So
Hey.
Yeah, it's been really, really good. Really enjoyed it. We're well and truly back. And if you are excited by this, let me know in the comments down below. Let us know. We'll be down there replying, I imagine, to a lot of them. If you're excited for the Championship season, let us know how you're feeling about your club, because we want to hear what you've got to say, which is going to be happening, of course, if you're new, every single month. So the end of a month.
What a commitment that is.
What a scary commitment. Every single month we're back here talking about the Championship and recapping on, I imagine, it was unpredictable every single month. We had different conversations. A lot of things happened.
Full disclosure, might not be sat here every single month, but we'll try our best.
We're going to try and do as many in-person episodes as we can. Yeah. We'll try and do as many.
Don't hold me to that, though.
We'll try and be as in-person as we can be. But whatever happens, stay involved, subscribe, leave a like, and we'll see you all very, very soon. Take care.